Okay. Okay, chapter 6 starts on page 124. Alright. One of your questions is right there in that paragraph in the middle of the page. Very, very important question. But it's kind of really one of those interesting facts too. It says in groups, all types, somewhere between 40 to 60% of the total group time will be spent in this stage. That's what you want. You want more than half of the group time to be in the working stage. Right? I mean, we would. Because that's where the work is done. That's where the goals are being met. That's where people are working toward what they wanted to get out of the group. So anywhere from 40 to 60, so about half of a group. So if you've got a group that's 10 sessions, a good 5-6 sessions of it should be in that working phase. Okay, so that covers that. We already talked about the cohesiveness. How many of you all have heard of Johari's window? I think I went over it, didn't I? Okay. The best thing about group is that if you can get to that point, if you get to that working stage, that means that people that are listening to you, people that are listening, that want you to meet your goal as much as you want you to meet your goal, then they can provide you feedback on things that you don't know about yourself. Right? I mean, do you think that all monopolizers know that they monopolize conversations? But how hard would it be for you to tell somebody that they're monopolizing? Seriously.
Depends on how long they've been doing it.
Okay? So, the thing about Johari's window that the group focuses on, and I might not get exactly like the book, I did my way, but it's still the same thing. It just might not be in the same order. But, you know, like when you were a kid and they tell you to draw a house that looks like a normal little window house, and you might have done like that with the little curtains in the window, right? So you just think of it as the 4-pane glass. Well, Johari's window says there's 4 panes here. And this first pane is everybody. It's clear on both sides. I can see in it, you can see out of it. That's the one, I know it about me, you know it about me, Melissa's loud. I know it, not a secret, you know it, everybody knows it, right? So, that first pane that's the open to all. You know it about you, they know it about you, not a secret. The second pane is, I know it, you don't know it, right? I know this about me. I know that those thoughts that I have in my head that I ain't never told nobody. I know things that I've done that I've never told nobody. I know things that I may have had an impulse to do that I've never shared, right? So I know it, but you don't know it. It's hidden from others. The third one, they know it, but I don't know it about myself. You see it, you know it, but I don't know that. I don't realize that about myself, right? And that's what, you kind of want that person to have, is that cathartic moment and realize those things about themselves. And then, according to the Johari window, the 4th pane is nobody knows it. That's the subconscious. That's that pane that you don't know it and I don't know it either. It's that underlying meaning. Like, you might not know why you do some of the things you do, but you've never really processed it or went deep enough to figure it out. It's that hidden, so nobody else knows it either. Nobody else is seeing it either. So it's hidden from everybody. That's your dark side, right? It's hidden from all of us. And that's what the Johari window is about. And when you get into those pains that are the unknown, think of how liberating it can be the more that we can open up. I mean, it's kind of like one of those things like, and you see these kind of games and stuff people play, but the truth of it is, could you handle, and what would you do with the information if those people that know things about you told you the things that you don't know about you? Do you want to know it about you? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So that's in that working phase, that is the place and the opportunity that those group members can. You might not know you're strong, but they see it. You might not think this of yourself, but they see it. That gives that group the opportunity to put that enforcement on you and say that they see that about you. And so they can be very empowering. Whether it's positive or negative, the more you know about yourself, if you know it, at least you can accept it and work on the things that you don't like. But if you don't even know that you do it, you're not working on it at all. Right? But it also gives you a safe place to tell people things that you never told, to tell people things that you feel or things that you've experienced that you've never shared before. And that's empowering as well. And that's why when you think about, like, when we're doing these activities, really, you know, you're looking at the stages, but when you do these activities, you're doing these activities in different panes, right? What's okay to say, what's not okay to share yet. You know, you got to work up through these different panes of the information of the disclosure. And so, I mean, I always thought it was kind of a neat concept. On page 127, below the gray block there, tell me, because it's important that you want to know this, tell me what it's called when you try to make sure that everybody has equal airtime. What's it called? Okay, make sure you know that. Make sure you know what it's called when everybody has equal airtime. Making sure that everybody has equal airtime is one of the ways that you can make sure that that group is constantly working, because everybody's working as a group, and nobody's resisting anymore, stepping back. You're separating from the group. The next thing that you can do is role play. If you're having trouble with certain things, or you need to practice certain things, it could be anything from social awkwardness, not know how to meet new people, to trying to take back some power. One of the examples in the book that I read, and one of those was like a young lady who had a very authoritative older stepfather, and so she always felt really uncomfortable even trying to not feel real submissive with any older man. And if there was an older man in the group, that would give her a sounding board to kind of practice that and feel empowered to kind of transfer some of those emotions and get some of her power back. So role play can be really effective. I mean, even like in my job, all the time, like if we have kids, you know, a lot of times when you work with kids, you work with social awkwardness. And, you know, a lot of times we'll make the kids go down the hall, and if any clinicians has got their doors open, they got to walk in and figure out how like to introduce themselves, you know, because it's safe, because, you know, the clinicians are going to be nice about it and everything, but they got to go in and introduce themselves and try to figure out how to start a conversation appropriately. So role playing is always good. And when you have close group members, they don't care to be that transference object for that person to have that moment. We can give homework as assignments. The next section it talks about, and I just honestly don't know anybody that does these kind of things. It talks about different types of assessments to see how the group's doing. I don't know anybody that takes time to fill out assessments, because when you do groups, it's so, you know, fast moving. People don't really have time to get that kind of stuff done. But it does give you some different assessments that you can use to kind of assess how well your group's going and getting into the working phase if you're interested in that type of thing. Kind of measures the team building. On the bottom of page 130, it talks about factors that can either be a positive or negative. Obviously, your leadership style is going to have a major impact on how well your group goes. That should be a given. How mature and motivated your group members are to participate. Like we were talking about before, you've got to be realistic, and there's probably a lot different levels of motivation and maturity depending on mandated versus volunteer groups.
I got a little bit of an example for this, but it's not in an actual group. It's like where I actually work at within my group with my other coworkers. I just recently, I actually, when they transferred me to Jonesville February the 9th, but we had the blizzard.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
So I actually only got to work with them, and it's 2 other girls. There's another counselor and a mentor there. And when they brought me in there, they were all excited they were getting somebody. And we had all had a training together and everything. Well, everything went really good like that first week. Well, we come back from our 3 weeks off and everything. It's all going good. We've got a lot of stuff we've got to do. But I guess before they transferred me, I was the only counselor at my school, so I was by myself. I was used to doing everything by myself, taking charge. Well, apparently my style of leadership, from what I did previously to what I've got to do now with another counselor and a mentor there with me, sort of has rubbed them the wrong way. And I have to catch myself and, like, as much as I,
So are you kind of have like co-leaders?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're all equal, but I'm used to just taking charge, and it's sort of rubbed them the wrong way, and I have to catch myself and apologize for it and be like, hey, I don't do this on purpose, and I don't recognize it. If there's something I'm doing that you recognize that, you don't think is like, it's not, and I guess it's kind of childish, I guess, on their part. They were talking about me through text message because they said I was hogging the computer. I didn't even know I was hogging the computer. Nobody said anything to me. I was like, guys, if you had just said anything, I wouldn't, I said, you guys, so I realized you all have worked together since September here. I said, since September, I've been by myself to where I don't have to share a computer with anybody. I was like, call me out on it. I don't care.
So like if you thought of it in the stages, you're still in that norm of what to do. What are you supposed to do and what are you not supposed to do?
It's like we took a step back because that first week and the first week and a couple days of last week.
You didn't take a step back. That was the foreman when everybody was playing nice.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
You didn't go backwards. They just let it go because it's new.
And it's discouraging because we all 3 have to work together, but I just feel like if I don't feel like I'm doing much wrong because I don't recognize it, but they're perceiving me in a way that I'm totally not.
I feel you.
Yeah, that I'm totally not. And I told them, I said I'm outspoken. I said, and sometimes it can be a little bit, because they don't deal with their kids the way I deal with mine. I guess they almost borderline think I need my kids. But I know what I'm doing.
But I think what you really did, though, is you brought up a really good thought for people when they start leading new groups, is everything was going good, and then we backed up. But we didn't. I think that's really important for a new group leader to recognize, to expect that feeling like you're degressing when really things are just becoming real. You're getting in that storming phase. Because you even said you felt like you went backwards, but you really didn't. It was just that newness. Everybody was playing nice. So you were where you were supposed to be. You were in that, that beginning of playing nice. You were in that foreman. But then when people's real personalities started coming out, that's when you see that conflict. But that should be expected. How that's handled will decide whether you get out of that transition.
Well, I tried to, my original plan was to just not address it at all. But I didn't feel right about not addressing it because I didn't feel like what they were saying was accurate, because I knew what they were saying and I knew what actually happened, and not just because it's me. So I just addressed it, and I was like, you guys can tell me. I'm not going to get mad. I said, I'm easygoing. I said, I am outspoken, but I'm easygoing. And if there's something you don't like, just tell me. I said, I promise I ain't going to get mad. And the one that actually was saying this stuff has actually, because she's coming around a little bit more, because she's a very timid type person. And I think she just thinks that I'm really like out there. But the other one, that actually the mentor that was actually like on the receiving end of the message, is mad because she was like, well, how did she, see that on my phone? So, well, your phone was like sitting beside of me while I was doing my work, and there it is. I can't help but to see that, and I just wish y'all hadn't done that. But
So instead of taking responsibility of what they did, they're
mad
what?
at me.
Yeah.
No, listen. So instead of taking responsibility and addressing the issue at hand, what is that reaction that you got?
I should know this.
They focused it back, right? That's a form of resistance,
Yeah.
right? They didn't want to deal with the problem.
No.
They wanted to be like, they diverted it,
Yeah.
right? So it's moving,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just,
But that's all that you can do, I think, is just keep it out there, keep it open.
you always just feel like, you could have done something different, but really, I guess things just happen.
Life is life. Nobody
Yeah.
said it was going to be easy. That's a good example, though. Thank you. Group task and purpose. I think a lot of people, if they kind of know what the goals are, you got something to work for. I'm the kind of person. I am a to-do lister. I am a ridiculous to-do lister. I don't ever feel like I'm home long enough to complete everything. So, like, I'm one of those people, I will even write down every room in my house. So, I might not get my whole house cleaned up, but I might be able to mark off a few rooms today. So, at least it makes me feel better that I got 3 rooms done. It makes me feel like I've accomplished more than if I just said I didn't get to finish cleaning my house. So at least I got something done. I got the kitchen, the living room, and maybe a bathroom done. But stability, and this can't be preached enough. Don't let your groups get too big out of hand. The more and more people that you have, the more and more dynamics, the more and more conflicts, subgroup, and all those things. So keep a monitor on your size. And I didn't really look at that on the flyers. I think that we talked about it, but time. I mean, when you think about like how much time you would want somebody to vote for a group, the truth of it is, let's see, with the extra time that we've got, we've got a total of like 8 weeks for this course, from beginning to end. How hard will it be for some of you all to fit in that 1 hour group that you have to observe?
It's hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things when you're doing that flyer.
I figured it out. It's a way to work it in while I'm at work.
That's what
I'm
Right,
going
so-
to- I'm going to go observe like the group that the social services clinician does with the parole guys. And so I get to use that.
Yes, you can double dip.
Yeah, man.
But the truth of it is, I mean, what are you asking people to give up to come to your group? Do we all just have this free time laying around that is spent doing nothing? Could you go to a group that met 3 hours a week? Would you even commit to a group that worked 3 hours a week? Right. So just think about time is a big deal, right?
I mean, even if like my problem was severe, I would be like, I can't commit to 3 hours. Like even if I really needed to,
Right.
like it's be impossible.
So those are just things like, would it be better to meet like every week or every other week instead of once a month, and have short? I mean, those are the kind of things that you got to think of. Which is probably why some of those marathon groups and stuff like that, where they have like couples weekend and it's a whole weekend, because it's a lot easier to say, I'll give you one whole weekend than to commit to groups throughout a whole year. Though, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, those are the kind of things you got to think about when you're designing these things.
Like for me, I feel like that if you just did it like every other week or something like that, it would kind of lose it. Like, 'cause when I'm not here for 2 weeks, I kind of get lost and have to start trying to remember what it was really trying to work on something.
I think it probably depends on what the topic of the group is too. You know, severity, symptom-wise, that kind of stuff. You know, it's going to matter. I mean, it's just like I have clients that come once a week. I have clients that come once a month. There's the reasons that they're different. So, it goes into talking about some of the different types of racial and gender types of things. I'm not going to go into detail on this on chapter 6. The reason is there's a whole cultural chapter completely about culture, so we'll save that for the cultural chapter that we'll have the last weekend. And we already talked about it, I think, right? Did we talk about group collusion? So I think it was like in chapter 1 or 2 or something like that. But that is where you know, that group kind of binds together for a common attack on somebody else. You know, so it says it's a behavior of self-protection, but it's also the status quo.
Could that be like, okay, here's an example. Sorry if anybody knows it, but in Letcher County, our chief of police got a DUI. It's a big deal. Everybody knows about it. So in my DUI class, everybody all the time is like, why ain't he in here? You know, where's he at? Like freaking out.
Yeah, so if they get to focus on him,
they feel more innocent about what they did. They like.
Yeah, but they're not dealing with what?
Why they're there.
Well, what I have to get them back on track each time that this happens is, you know, we're not here to argue about our innocence or guilty, you know, how you got the DUI. We're here for treatment, so I'm sorry, guys. And also, even if the chief of police was one of my clients, I would not be able to discuss him with you. So let's move on.
Okay.
But it's just, I mean, every class that gets brought up. And the senator guy that got a DUI, that too. Every class.
That is a distraction, and that's a really good example. Collusion is a little bit different in the fact that the underlying thing with collusion is that they don't address it because they don't want conflict to arise. So let's say, you know, there's an elephant room. Let's say those people were in there.
Like
Okay.
the chief of police.
Yeah. Let's say that they were in there, and now you think about that. You think about, I don't know if I should say regular people, but regular people in there, and then you've got somebody that's an authority figure. Like, can you think of something maybe like that might be said, and other people will just agree and not disagree just to keep that disruption from not happening? You know what I'm saying? They're gonna keep, you know, it's the status quo. You know, you think of that, like the Alcoholics family, how you do things just to keep it balanced. You don't want to rock the boat. That's the collusion that they're talking about. Like, so let's say if that guy said something about, let's say if the chief police has said something about, well, you know that guy's lying because that cop, it's not like a cop would lie, right? Not like a cop would lie. And nobody says anything. Nobody would disagree with that. Because what would happen if they voiced their true feelings? There would be some conflict that would have to be dealt with. As the group leader, you want it.
You want the conflict.
You want the
So
conflict.
you want
You don't let the collusion happen because there's nothing. If everybody's just trying to keep from saying anything so they don't hurt anybody else's feelings, the group's not working anymore.
I think
It's not-
we kind of had that with the person I was telling you about that was coming to group high on prescription drugs, and we had to terminate her. And that's in our SAP program. Well, nobody would say anything about it, but they were all really upset. Like, the groups weren't going the way they used to. The dynamic was off.
Because they quit working.
Yeah. And then they terminated her, and everybody was like, you know, and obviously we can't talk to the group about her termination or where, but everybody was like, she's not here today. And then the next day, oh, she's not here today. And they were all like, oh, good, she's not coming back. And it went back to normal, you know.
Right. And that's probably when you found out more information about her than you ever had
Yeah.
after she left. because then they were willing to talk about it. But those conversations should have happened, you know.
Apparently she was trying to sell people pills in the parking lot, so that was a whole new thing.
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, it's the same kind of dynamics like in classrooms like this. Like, you know, some students that I've had, they hate group papers. They hate group papers because they have had experiences where they've been in a group and somebody didn't pull their weight. You know, and so, like, I've always gave that spiel where, like, okay, if I take responsibility as far as people should be at a level to where they are at a level of competency to pass into out of grad school, to graduate from grad school, and I say that I take a level of responsibility, well, I would say that I can only take 50% of the responsibility. I would say that you have to take the other 50%. If you were in a group, you know, we're in a group, so, you know, Tina, if me and you was working on that group, Kevin hadn't contacted us, hadn't said anything, we didn't know what we'd do, we have a choice to make, right? Okay, so when we're working in a group, we have the choice to either pick up the load and ignore the fact that we have somebody not carrying it, or to let it blow up so that that person is outed, right? Now, all of us type A personalities will shut our mouths to get the grade rather than ethically say, this person, they need to know that this person's not pulling the weight. I'm going to do my job, you're going to do your job, we're just going to let it fall. Because they're not going to know, the instructor's not going to know that Kevin didn't do anything if we cover for him. It's the same thing, that's what collusion is, right? You just fix it, keep it quiet, so you can keep on under the radar. Okay. For you guys that are running groups, this is probably a really good cheat sheet for you. On page, can't see nothing, 133, it's got examples of like, what does it look like if the group's not working versus what if the group is working. So it kind of gives you statements and comparisons. So I think that's a really good type thing. And that chart goes on to the next page, 134 as well. It says if you feel like that you're in the working stage, but then there's some stuff that kind of rocks the boat and things are not going the way that you want, things that you can do is different types of exercises, group observing group, brainstorming, different techniques, writing projects, and it kind of gives you some ideas. Now this might be a section for you guys that are working on activities to, like, if you're still like, I don't know what I'm going to do, this might be an area of the chapter that you might want to use to kind of maybe help you brainstorm some ideas for a good activity, because it kind of gives you some different things that you can do. And it starts off with modeling. And again, modeling can be used in a lot of different ways, but you as a group leader, you are always modeling how you behave, how you respond, how you react to the situations. You're modeling for each group member the appropriate way to interact with the other group members. So that's one of the main reasons why you've got to always make sure that you don't take things personal. When it talks about group observing group, you can see it. It's called the fishbowl procedure. And it would be kind of interesting, I think, to do that. I don't know how the group would be affected knowing they would be observed. But like if you think about like when Carter leads his group activity, he's going to have him and 4 other members in that group. The fishbowl would be like the rest of the class, every bit of the rest of us would get in a circle outside of his circle and just sit there and observe. It's called the fishbowl procedure. So I can see the benefits of it, because if we're outside the group, we might observe some behaviors that we didn't notice when we were inside the group. But I think that there's like, as long as it was the group as a whole, then people wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But I think that there could be some thought processes you'd have to figure out, because would the group the inside group change because the outside group is observing them?
Probably.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, if they were already all a group, it might not change too much because you already know them, so they're just kind of sitting behind you, and it's kind of like maybe being videoed. You don't even, like, think about it after a
It's
while.
like with our class, like, you know, you have your cohort, and then when you mix them, like the first little bit, you're not the same as you were because you're, you know.
Because that trust's not there yet.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Right. But I'm saying with this, with the group, the group would stay as a whole group. So what impact would it have for just a smaller group to be inside, still the same group, no new members? So if you had a group of 10 and you had a small group of 4 doing an activity and you had the other ones doing the fishbowl to give feedback on maybe some of the stuff going on in the group, or it could be more or less depending on how you wanted it. You could have more on the inside or outside.
So it's not like you would go observe a whole other group. You would just.
Now the group stays intact. It's just a design set up so that you have some of these people saying, you know, I didn't notice like the tension here between so and so and so and so when we're in group, but me sitting back as an observer, I notice a little bit more now. So the group members don't change, just the format. Some of them are not going to be participating, they're going to be observers. But it's really, 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 really important to know that that is the fishbowl procedure. So, so if I was to ask this question, the fishbowl procedure gives a number of group members the opportunity to view other members at work for a limited amount of time. This process is intended to help members with each of the following except. Okay, so you're going to need to know what those are so you know which one is not supposed to be in there. Process is intended to help members with each of the following except. So the things that it is supposed to help with is what?
It shifts the focus.
On common concerns. What else? That's one of them. There's 2 more. Focus is on common concerns. And they begin to do what? They begin to work harder. And what do they do with the information that they observe? What do they do with it?
They share the information and say, you're doing this or that.
Provide feedback. Very good. Those are the 3 things. Okay. Very good. The next thing is brainstorming. Brainstorming is good because you're getting everybody to participate. Like if I said right now, like, okay, we have a problem here, not sure how to fix it, you guys help me, and we got everybody to give at least one idea, then everybody's put their input in. You know, it's brainstorming. But what it does, it also shows the creativity because, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? Just because you didn't think of it doesn't mean that somebody won't come out with a real brilliant idea, a way to solve the problem. And so it has everybody working on the common goal and trying to problem solve. Let's see. And one of the other ones I want to talk about is on page 138, which I like, and I can see you using this in an individual or a group session. The therapeutic fairy tale is when you're trying to problem solve and trying to, you have to write a fairy tale. It has to start with the once upon a time, and it has to have a happy ending. But anything in the middle is left up for grabs, what happens, and everybody has to write their therapeutic fairy tale. And that's kind of in that that whole thought processes of do you know what the TAT is? Therapeutic apprehension. You've heard of the Rorschach ink blots, right? Okay, it's in the same realm of therapy as that, but the TAT, and you can Google online and get the TAT images, but the TAT images are like those images where, like one of them, there's some with women, kids, men, ladies, different, but there's one with a lady, and she's looking out the window, and you just kind of see her looking out the window, and the expression on her face is left up to interpretation. She doesn't look unhappy, but she doesn't look happy. So if you had to tell me a story about her, that's what this fairy tale thing does. I don't have enough information, so how I tell the story, I have to pull from myself. And when you have somebody write those stories, they have to pull from something within them to complete the story, because how happy or content or thought invoke that lady is going to depend on how I'm feeling, right? And so that's one of those things, like those stories make people kind of express some inner stuff going on with them. And so I like the writing projects like that. Teenagers seem to enjoy writing projects because they get to be creative. And we have process observer in the other chapter. On the bottom of page 142 and 143, it talks about corrective emotional experience. What does it mean by corrective? Is there an incorrect emotional experience? What does it mean by corrective emotional experience? I don't know.
142.
Thank you. 142. I'm on 142.
Something horrible happens to you, and you laugh about it, because you refuse to cry and break down.
But that would be incorrect, right?
Oh, corrective. Well, the corrective will be correcting.
But what is it talking about having a corrective emotional experience? What is
Your
it?
real
What is it?
feelings. The realness.
True,
Yeah.
right? It's true. It's saying that one of the goals of the group is for that to have an atmosphere that is okay to have the true come out, right? So that you don't have the incongruence, right? And then the last part of that always, and I don't know but if everybody would agree, but I just think that you got to have it to just, I think it's one of like the best coping skills I've got, humor. Right? I mean, you know, sometimes you just got to either laugh or cry about it, because that's the only two choices you got left that day, right? But that's all of